This is Venusian Womb, a space for orienting to reality through the body,
where we explore how systems, culture, identity, and lived experience shape human perception.
and what it means to stay grounded, question deeply, listen honestly, and learn when to trust yourself, when to question yourself, and how to discern the difference. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of our season 2. Woot, 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 woot. We are so excited to be bringing this season to you and to literally be birthing this season to life. There is so much in the back end that has gone into starting to actually build this womb field, building what it is that we are here to talk about, to explore, to get curious about in this season. And I feel like season 1, we were so incredibly focused on the inner world, on our inner landscape as we are in the process of creation, as we're connecting to what our creative potential is, connecting to what seeds are being gestated within this exploration of creativity. And in season 2, we're now at a place where we're ready to start bringing our creations out into the world and seeing what that process is of physically birthing these creations out into the world. And also from there, recognizing what is the actual impact that our creation is having. So for this episode, we are going to be exploring how to trust yourself in uncertain times and really explaining a little bit more about what birth is, what this part looks like in the womb journey, as well as what it actually means to connect with yourself and to start building that trust as we're moving through the unknown.
I'd love to jump on quickly before we start getting into the breakdown of this particular episode. Um, just to give a little caveat for this season, because birth is messy. We, in this process of having a podcast, of doing season 1 and volume 1, and just how Venusian Boom and our creations have recreated us, we have learned a lot about structure, about how helpful structure is, about how you could get stuck in the rigidity of structure and then lose flow. So we're still in this space, this phase of learning how to balance structure and flow. So bear with us through this season as we are going to be messy and we are going to embrace the messiness of birth. That's energetically what's holding us, but we also do have structure. We have guest speakers lined up. We have topics lined up. We have particular structure for each of the episodes so that they're following a particular flow. But within that, we're also learning detachment from it and learning how to adapt in real time without feeling that pressure of, oh my God, that wasn't perfect. Oh my God, like we need to redo that. We're going to let ourselves be a little bit more messy in this process, seen in the messiness and embracing that messiness, because that's birth. You can't birth something without being messy. It's just not possible.
It's so interesting how already, as you're speaking to the messiness, I feel my body bracing and contracting, because it's like, what do you mean this isn't going to be perfect and refined and specially curated so that it's perceived to be is this beautiful work of art? And the truth is that the most impactful and meaningful art that we can actually relate to within our humanity is the art that is messy. It's the art that transmutes all of these different experiences of what it means to be human. And it's the parts of being human that are uncomfortable, that are confronting, that are messy. So we really are embracing that. And I feel like this brings us so perfectly into the threshold of birth and what we are talking about when we are referring to birth, when we're referring to this stage in the womb journey where you're orienting yourself to reality. And this threshold, it's almost that in-between stage where there is something old that is dissolving. There are questions in the mind that are starting to really get very clear on why things are the way that they are and why you're showing up the way that you are and who you are in this shifting, in this dissolving, in this reorienting to who you are now, who you are as you're being birthed by your own creation. And there's something that starts to emerge when we're in this threshold. Oftentimes we may feel a little bit uneasy in terms of not knowing where this threshold, this unknowing is bringing us to. But within that, we're able to really learn what it is to hold ourselves in the unknown, to hold ourselves in the questioning, in the mind, not being able to understand what's going on, and really trusting what is the process in the body, in your being, in your sense of self that is slowly starting to emerge as you're being birthed and rebirthed again and again, because we're exploring birth right now, but this is part of the womb journey, the cyclical womb journey that you will come back to again and again and again. And every time we meet ourselves here in this birthing portal, it is going to be messy.
Which leads us beautifully into we want to speak of how we are currently in an age of disorientation. And what we mean by that is there is so much technological advancement that is moving at a speed we have never, ever seen before. I don't even think our minds can grasp on to how quickly we are evolving or technology is expanding and growing and how that's impacting us as humans. We have access to everything at the tip of our fingertips. The exposure on social media, on internet, the opinions, people's different opinions, like there's just so much information that we are constantly exposed to from the moment we wake up, because a lot of us are addicted to our phones and the first thing we reach for in the morning is our phone. We start scrolling to the minute we go to bed, which what most people do before going to sleep, you're scrolling through your phone. So, in this mass exposure to all that information, opinions, misinformation, we can get very, very disoriented, very overwhelmed, very overstimulated. The body is not used to having access to this much information. The body is not used to being in so much uncertainty. And in all of this uncertainty, in all of this complexity, because this ain't simple, like there's so much coming in, the feelings, the emotion, the emotional experience that we are going through in a span of maybe 10 seconds sometimes is insane. It's insane. It's so hard to know, oh my God, what's mine? What did I just pick up from that video I just watched? What did that then trigger in me that made me think of like, just think of all these things that are happening consciously and subconsciously at the same time, which is literally like shattering, fragmenting our sense of self. And in all of that, the question that we have seen time and time again in our own practices, in our own circles, with our friends, with women we work with in through Venusian womb, is a lot of people are questioning, what do I trust? And how do I trust myself in this time of disorientation?
And it's so interesting how when we are consuming so much, there is no integration. There is no actual processing that can happen of the information that we're consuming because it's just too much information. And I just want to like maybe even anchor this into an example of like how many times have you maybe read something on social media and like maybe you're half reading it, you're like half present, you're not really connecting to the words, but you're online, you're scrolling, something catches your eye, you start reading it. And then you try to recall what you just read and you can't. It's like oftentimes we are even passively consuming information because we are dissociated from the body. And when we're only consuming information from the mind, there is no embodiment. There is no like felt sensation. You're not connecting to the words. It's just consumption of just information that has no actual deeper meaning. And it's not opening you up to a reflection or a contemplation or a moment of presence with yourself. And that's especially true with all of this short content that's online, right? It's like 10 seconds long that we don't even have time within the length of this content to be able to connect with it. And so what we fall into is this kind of like this, this trap of we're just continuously consuming information from this surface level. And that's why we also wanted to create this podcast so that we can actually go deeper, deeper into all of these different topics in a way where we're able to connect with ourselves and stay connected with ourselves while we are consuming information. Because information is always going to be out there. And that is a gift of this modern time, is that we have access to beautiful information that is able to shape your life experience and your journey and how you're choosing to show up in the world. And it's also making it so much more important to be able to practice that muscle of discernment, which how could we possibly have discernment within our lived experience if we are not connected to our lived experience? We're not feeling connected to ourselves. We're not feeling connected to our bodies. We're not feeling connected to the little subtle shifts of sensation or, yeah, I guess sensation that is our intuition speaking,
Mhm.
because it can be felt, it can be heard, it can be smelt, there's so many different ways that we receive intuition, which is our internal information centers that are telling us and guiding us. It's our gut. When we're not connected to ourselves, we're not able to receive that. We're not able to read those cues and to notice the subtle changes within ourselves to then be able to orient ourselves in our reality.
Thank you, Milena. That was so beautifully said, which I think it's so important for us to highlight the word discernment because that is the overarching holding theme of this entire season. So I'm going to read us the definition of discernment just so that we're all on the same page and that we all understand what discernment means. So this is an AI overview, just letting you know. Discernment is the mental and spiritual ability to perceive, understand, and judge things clearly. It involves looking past the obvious to distinguish the truth, recognize subtle details, and make sound, wise decisions. I'm going to invite everyone to take a breath. And in that discernment that we're going to be exploring in every single one of these episodes, it's really important for us to speak to we are really not here to tell you what is true. That's not our job. That's not our role. That's not our intention. Our intention is for you to explore what your discernment means to you. What does discernment feel like? What is your discernment telling you? And only you will be able to know that. And coming back to that piece that Milena was speaking about on consumption, and again, with this disorientation, this very real disorienting time, how much we're consuming. The more we consume, the less space we have to express, the less space we have to be authentic. And I kind of hate that word. I'm really wrestling with the word authentic because I think it's oversaturated and used so much to mean absolutely fucking nothing. But what I mean by it in this particular context is the more you consume, so the more you're putting all your energy external yourself onto something else, the less energy you have to focus on you, which is basically what Milena just said. Um, so I think that's important to also hold throughout these episodes as you're following us along on this birth journey is what are you consuming and what are you expressing?
Thank you for expressing that. And I think that that's so important to express at this time, is being able to truly meet ourselves in our human experience with humility, with the humility of knowing that we don't know. We don't know. None of us knows how to live this human experience. We are all here figuring it out. We are all here learning how to stay connected with ourselves and with our truth and with our soul and with the ways that spirit is moving through us to create out into the world in whatever service, art, people that you are meant to impact through your existence. And I think that a big part of this is learning how to build that connection with yourself so that you can then come to learn what it is that you're here to express, what it is that you're here to bring into the world, and the impact that you're here to have. And I think that oftentimes we kind of get stuck in the system because we're born into a system. We're born into a society that has certain operating structures that are already pre established. And a lot of these systems that we're going to be talking about within season 2 is all of these different systems that are in place that create the society that we live in, is being able to recognize, one, what are these systems that are in place? What are the ways that these systems support us? What are the ways that these systems maybe oppress us and suppress us? And how do we stay connected to our truth? How do we stay connected to our true humanity within the systems without losing ourselves to fear, to survival, to making money so we can meet our basic needs? And oftentimes when we're in this state of fear and disarray, we're not able to actually access any creative potential, even though we are innately creative beings. Innately. And it is from that creative potential that we are actually able to innovate, to create art that moves people, to create a revolution, which is the time that we are in right now, is we are in a great revolution. We are noticing that there is a very big trajectory right now within humanity, especially with the use of AI and technology. How beautiful and blessed are we to be able to have this technology to support humanity? But now, how are we still staying connected to our humanity even while we have technology? And this is where we're noticing is that a lot of people are outsourcing their humanity to technology because they don't trust themselves. Because as humans, we are innately messy. But that is the lesson.
And I want to add a little piece to ex- go a little deeper with that because we are innately messy. We are uncertain. We fuck up. We make mistakes. And in this culture, this urgency culture of having answers right away, synthesizing things immediately, there's very little space for that humanity, for the messy, and for those pockets, and to have, especially when you're being bombarded daily with what's morally right, what's morally wrong, what are everybody's opinions. There's this urgency for you to form your opinion immediately, for you to know what's your truth in this. That's so freaking like trapping. And then it feels like before maybe you even have an opinion that's formulated, you're going to come up to one. Either because what you just heard resonated a little bit, or your body was like, yes, that's my opinion, without really integrating or sitting with it and noticing, okay, but why did that resonate? What part actually resonated? And was it all of that? Was it part of it? Or was there a part that resonated within that I'm now thinking or perceiving is truth, when really it's reflecting something in me that I have to sit with? Because sometimes it is truth and sometimes it's just conditioning in the body that we're recognizing a pattern that we're comfortable with, and that's not actually truth.
Can we like bookmark that? Like just the difference between truth and comfort. And I think that this is going to really bring us into a big part of what it is to be human, is that in this human experience, mind you, we are spiritual beings. We've come on this earth and now we're having a human experience. And we're all trying to orient ourselves to the reality of our earth and the time of the world of humanity that we've all chosen to come into. And so within this, it's like we do have an ego. We do have a part of us that is going to create an identity. And this may seem for some people, it's like a mask. even though what we're trying to teach is removing the mask so we can be in our full soul and in our full truth and in our beingness, where there isn't this thinking and there isn't this character development that we're trying to portray, where we're trying to build a story of who we are and trying to prove to people that we are this story that we've created for ourselves. But this is part of being human, is recognizing that these parts of us are going to be here and that we do have an identity that we've connected to, that we are developing in the ways that we show up in the world, but also learning how to not attach to that so tightly. Because when we attach to who we think we are or who we want to be perceived as in the world, then we're also not allowing ourselves the space and the potential to change and to experience something more, something outside of the confines of what feels comfortable for you in this story, in the main story of your life, right? Let's be a little messy. Let's go and explore outside of what feels comfortable. Let's question the things that we've been told to be true. And as someone that also grew up in science and in research, I grew up with quantifiable, factual evidence to prove everything that I believe to be true. And it wasn't until I opened my mind through a rude awakening that I started to then question beyond what I was told. And that is where the true explorers go to play. That is where
Mhm.
true innovation and creative potential is present, is in the unknown. It's going outside of what you believe to be true or what you've been exposed to or what you know as being reality in the state that it is. Like, let's go outside that. Let's explore beyond that. Let's question more than what we see with our eyes. And that is where humanity is. The power of discernment lies there.
Which leads us thank you. What a beautiful flow we're in right now. There's this really particular line that in our notes I wanna read to kind of bridge us to the next section. Many of us inherit ways of seeing the world before we ever consciously choose them. This exploratory energy, this exploratory archetype that Milena just brilliantly brought us to is so crucial in noticing what beliefs, what stories, what ego identifiers, identities have we taken on that are maybe not even ours? That maybe we've taken on for protection, for safety, for our sense of belonging. Maybe that's something a teacher said, a parent said, um, and just noticing what is yours, what truly belongs to you, and what doesn't belong to you. What is just being regurgitated and repeated, and what is yours. And I think that is also another big piece of learning to orient yourself, learning to discern what is and what isn't.
I feel like a good example is the good girl. How many
Mhm.
of us were told to follow the rules? And I mean, I say good girl because I am a woman, but let's say good child, like following the rules, doing what your parents told you to do, not questioning what the teachers are telling you in school. So you're not being confrontational or you're not being too much or too emotional. And I think that this is like a perfect way that we are conditioned to not think outside of what we're told, because then we'd get in trouble, or then we'd potentially be shamed for being too much or asking too much or being too curious or, just stop asking questions. I've been told that so many times. And so these are the ways, right, that like we slowly stop exploring and stop becoming curious and start conforming to what we're told.
I have a very concrete example that from this week, actually.
Mm.
I started my bleed on Monday, and when I tell you, I had this desire to just go outside in my period underwear and a sports bra
Mhm.
and just bathe in the sun. Let the sun hold me and let myself bleed That being said, I don't have a private backyard. My backyard is quite open and about, and my neighbors were definitely all not in the same mind of wanting to go outside and bleed in their period underwear, but wanted to bask in the sun. And I felt that moment of conditioning and all those stories of, "Oh my god, Megan, like, don't do that. That's gross. Ew. Your neighbors are gonna think you're crazy. Your neighbors are gonna think you're weird. That's inappropriate." And I almost didn't honor that desire. I almost gave in to that self-abandonment in that moment of not allowing my expression, myself, to follow through and honor it. And I chose to go outside and do it, despite the stories, despite what my mind was saying, and despite the fear. And there was something so liberating in that expression, in that honoring of self, that whew, was freaking juicy, man. But just that those stories that seeped in, those conditioning, those beliefs that were not mine, those were not mine. I let them go in that moment and I chose myself.
And I want to say there was nothing innately inappropriate about what you were doing. And this kind of brings us into recognizing that as we are slowly stepping into our truth, and what the truth ultimately is honoring yourself in the moment, is what is true for you. And how are we honoring that in the present moment instead of letting these stories and narratives of what we've been told come in and basically disconnect you from your true desires, from yourself. And even when we're doing that, even though it can feel so juicy, like what Megan spoke to, is I felt so juicy being outside and just honoring myself and embracing myself, it will also feel very activating. And this is the part that we want to speak to also, is the nervous system, is how big of a part the nervous system plays in this process of staying connected to ourselves, of honoring our truth, of meeting the stories that come in, of conditioning of what we've been told, of the good girl, right? Just to give an example, and letting that go and recognizing that even when we are living in our truth and choosing to honor ourselves and choosing to stay connected to ourselves, we're going to feel uncomfortable. And that discomfort is part of the activation. That discomfort is the parts of you that feel like you're not allowed to honor yourself. You're not allowed to live in your truth because it's unsafe, because then you'll be judged, then you'll be outcasted. Whatever that fear is, it can show up in so many different forms. It's how are we still staying connected while all of this activation is coming up in the nervous system? Maybe there is a fight, flight, freeze response, fawn response that is showing up in your body. And that's the threshold, is when you're feeling this activation and you're feeling the fear and you're noticing the stories that are coming up, is instead of collapsing in that sensation, that like very overwhelming sometimes and activating sensation, is how can we ground ourselves so that we can make a conscious choice to honor the present moment and what's true for us then, without thinking of how we're perceived, without thinking of how we're perceiving or judging ourselves, and being present. We don't have to do anything or micromanage anything so we're perceived a certain way. So we feel that we are still within the confines of like who we think we are. That's so much thought. There's so much mental energy that goes into operating like that. And most of us operate like that. I think we all do, until eventually we continue practicing this process of discernment. What's conditioning and what's me? What's truth and what's what I is true for other people? It's not true for me.
I want to extend the invitation for everyone to take a pause and orient to the body. And what I mean by that is noticing your own activation in this moment. Maybe hearing us speak for the past, I don't know, 30 minutes now, there's an openness. Maybe there's a contraction. Maybe there's warmth. Maybe there's like, I'm not feeling anything. Like, I'm actually really uncomfortable hearing you guys speak right now. And let's just take a moment to meet whatever is going on in the body. Because I'm noticing a lot of activation in mine. I'm noticing a tightness in my chest, a tightness in my stomach, but also an openness at the same time of like, yes, Milena, yes, everything you're saying, yes. My mind says yes, but my body is still bracing.
Scared
Hmm.
about what that yes means, all the parts of conditioning that it may confront.
Because our bodies often know something that our minds don't. They're speaking to us while we might be in a story, while we might be in a conditioning. And we're wanting to extend invitations over the course of this season to be within the experience that the story is bringing up in the body. Orienting, again, this is the season of birth, orienting back to self, back to what's really here. And I think that now leads us into discernment versus fear. Fear is rampant right now in so many ways. When I think of fear, especially fear in the online spaces, so like online, social media, there are so many businesses, marketing strategies that operate on fear. What are that person's pain points? What are they scared of? What can we do to lure them in through fear? And that's just one way. And if we're thinking we are like consuming a lot of ads every single day that are operating based off of this system. So we are continuously being activated and triggered, and the algorithm is feeding us exactly what's going to hit those wounds, what's going to hit those pain points. That's going to then have us reflecting on, oh my God, I really need to fix this part of me. I really need to address this thing that my algorithm has now showed me 20 times today is clearly a problem. And all of these different things, these services, these products, these whatever is appearing into our field of things that we could possibly consume. And that's just one way that fear is playing with our nervous system or is impacting our nervous system, impacting our bodies, impacting our experiences. And then there's also the news. What's going on in the world? Because there's a lot of fucking shit, horrible crap, like horrible realities that other people are experiencing that we can now see with our own eyes, that we've has never been accessible in these ways as it is today. And I want to take a breath there too, because that in itself is a lot. Choosing what to engage with, choosing what to speak up on, choosing what to just allow yourself to see, feel. There's so much there. And we're not going to get into necessarily the politics or everything of that in this episode, but we also want to be bringing this to this season. So that's a second point of fear. And then there's another one, the misinformation. What's real? What's not real? What's truth? What's AI generated? What's fake? What's a lie? What is um, peer reviewed? But also who funded that peer review? There's so much fear. My voice literally just cracked. Even speaking about this is scary because there's a lot of uncertainty. There's so much uncertainty, and we don't know what to do with it a lot of the times.
There's 2 points that I want to add to this. One of them is the impact that fear has on perception is when we are in a state of fear, and oftentimes the fear is going to trigger our root. It's going to trigger our sense of self. It's going to trigger our sense of safety, the basic things that we need to survive. One of those being belonging. It's not just food, water, shelter. It's also feeling that we're part of something and we're not alone and isolated. And when we're living in this frequency of fear, we are no longer able to access this rational part of the mind. We are in the primitive reptilian brain that is only focused on survival, on there is a threat. It recognizes that there is a threat, whether that threat is physical, psychological, emotional, whatever your body is perceiving as a threat is going to trigger that fear. And then it's going to trigger this reptilian brain that is just trying to focus on surviving. And when we're in that space, we're not able to have the actual perspective to understand nuance, to understand that there may be two truths that exist at the same time. We live in a world of duality. And so there will always be two truths that are existing at the same time. And that's part of the complexity and the nuance of being human and this human experience is that there is no absolute right. There is no absolute wrong. And there's so many different layers and factors and things that play into the experiences that we're having. And so when we're in this state of fear, we are so much more controllable because in that space, in that state of being, you just want to survive. So you're going to do whatever it is that you need to do to survive. And that's where this conditioning happens systemically. And that's where the rat race kind of falls in. That mindset of I'm just living my day to survive. I'm not thinking, I'm not creating, I'm not connecting to myself. I'm so engulfed by overwhelm and oversaturation of information and what it is that I am being asked of by the system that I don't even have the capacity to think for myself. And that might be what a lot of us are experiencing.
In that space is where we outsource our authority.
Yes.
We outsource, I can't trust myself here. Someone online, that opinion, they know. They know that truth. That must be the truth because they're speaking to that very thing that I'm not sure about. I need help with. I'm trying to survive through. And they just gave me an answer. And then we cling to it.
But that's not your truth. There may be elements of that truth that someone is expressing for them that may resonate. And that's where we have to sit with ourselves and process and integrate and embody the information that we are receiving. And what that looks like is what elements of this feel true for me? And maybe what elements don't exactly resonate with me. And you could feel it in your body and we'll talk more about this as this season unfolds is what that looks like. How can we connect to ourselves and connect to the subtle sensations of our body and connect to our values that are going to lead us forward in how we are choosing to discern what is true for us. But I do want to say that when we are in a state of activation, that's not accessible. That discernment is not accessible. It doesn't matter how aware you may be, how many tools you may have. In that moment of activation and overwhelm, we're not able to reach that truth. And so that's helpful to know so that we're not confusing fear and that like impulsive reaction with discernment. because discernment does take the time to integrate so that you can ground to yourself. And then from there, understand what's true and what's fear.
Something
And
so strong is coming through that I didn't think we were going to speak about, but I think is actually so important to speak about: the rise in generative AI and the very real question that it's placing on people are losing their capacity to critically think. And all of this is critical thinking. And I'm not saying I'm an expert on understanding critical thinking, but I do know that I have been in a space of not believing I'm a good critical thinker because I don't think I am this very intelligent person in the ways that intelligence is perceived in some ways. But noticing, having this awareness of this activation, of maybe not having your prefrontal cortex online, so that part of your brain that can actually think for you while you're in the reptilian brain, is a huge part of noticing what critical thinking is and slowing down and being with what is here. And I think that this is part of this, I don't want to say antidote or antidote, whatever that word is, because there is so much fear that people are losing their sense to being able to critically think to AI. And there's a lot of anger and frustration being thrown at technology is bad, technology is good. And like there's no nuance in this conversation. It's black or white. But we need to be bringing more nuance in to be able to teach ourselves how to ethically relate, how to stay connected to our humanity in this age of information saturation
and
and
technology.
and technology. And how do we stay connected to us? How do we stay connected to our discernment? How do we keep our critical thinking intact, especially if we're now seeing there's data, there's research showing that people aren't outsourcing their authority to technology, which is very understandable given the time we're in, but we have to be able to talk about it without shame, without guilting, without blaming people for why they're doing it. Anyways, so that's just something I think is really important, an important part of this conversation because it's the reality of the world we're in right now. It's the reality of the conversations that are being had online that people are being judged for.
I'm noticing anger. There's an anger um, that I'm is coming through for me so strongly in you expressing just this era that we're in of technology and AI, which is the fact that none of these beautiful, innovative developments have come with true disclaimers. We've had this AI wave and uprising, which we'll have a whole separate episode on transhumanism and AI. So we're not going to go too deep into that, but it is really incredibly prevalent and part of our modern world right now. Is that we were never given any disclaimers as to how to use these as resources and how to use these different technologies as tools. And because we've not been told how to come into right relationship with this technology without giving our power away and giving our ability to critically think away, we're all kind of navigating this uprising without really understanding how to do so in a way where we are still having autonomy, where we still are not outsourcing and we're using it as a supportive tool. And I think within this, hold up, I'm actually going to take a breath because there's anger and it's like distorting the field. And so it's interesting as I'm recognizing the anger that's here about this technology not being properly integrated into society, is also recognizing how many times have you outsourced to technology or to ChatGPT or some type of AI a very human experience where you're maybe having some type of relational rupture with a friend, or there's something within you, your own inner world, where you're like, I'm experiencing overwhelm and I'm also experiencing fear, but I'm experiencing excitement. And maybe you're asking AI to support you in understanding your human experience. And this is totally something that I've done. And I'm feeling shame for it in this moment by just recognizing that. And that's okay. Because again, we're human and we're messy. And there's going to be moments where we're bringing this cool new technology into our world and we're excited and we want to explore and we want to see all the different features and capacities that this possibly has to like serve us, that we don't even realize we're giving our power away to it. That we're trying to ask a technology to explain and to help us understand something that is very human. And that there is no technology that exists that is going to explain your human experience better than your intuition, your gut, your inner compass. It's literally designed and built in you. And again, like we're not here to say that anything is right or wrong. You know, there is no shame in maybe recognizing I may have not had the best relationship with this new technology. And that's something that I'm learning how to refine right now and get very discerning on. And that's the process. And I think that within that, it's also like recognizing that, you know, we're all kind of figuring it out together. Like no one actually knows. We don't know the impact that this technology has on the brain. Like this research is literally happening as this technology is already integrated into society. So we don't know the consequences of what this new wave is actually having on us and the impact that it has. And this is for us as beings that are experiencing this revolution of AI and technology. This is for us to discern because all of this research is going to come out at some point and we're living it. Like we're literally living it right now
right now.
in this moment.
Thank you for your vulnerability, for speaking truth. And I really feel that that is a beautiful way to close off our episode 1 because we are here to stay fucking human, to be relational, to be in our embodied experience, to ask more meaningful, discerning questions and giving ourselves the time to process, to integrate, and to notice. We don't have to have quick answers, quick fixes.
Mm-hmm.
Allowing that urgency culture, notice that it's there, allowing it to be there, but allowing ourselves to choose to take the time to discern how to stay relationally with one another. And yeah, just how to be.
And it's so interesting. I want to say this last point is with this rise of technology and AI, one of the ultimate pros, I guess, to it is we are able to be so much more efficient a lot quicker. We're able to create at a faster pace than we ever have before. And it's actually speeding up society. It's speeding up the pace of living to a point that has no space and time for integration because we're always trying to be more efficient, to be faster, to self-optimize, to make something better. Can we accept ourselves as we are? And there was something that I actually received as a piece of wisdom from Florence Gibbons. And I think she's come up like a few times because I love her. Um, and she talks about like in an era where we are continuously trying to optimize and make more efficient and make better and faster. Can we accept being mediocre,
Messy?
messy, like human? We're not robots. We're not meant to be perfect. We're not meant to have these like very clear, curated answers and like very established questions. And even though AI can speak to the nuance, it's not living the nuance. It's a code. It's a code. It's like literally numbers. Right? Like it's just, and people don't know this. Like we don't know how AI is created, right? Like we don't know. Some people don't understand, like, where does this information come from? They just type, press enter, and then they get a whole world of information that's like, whoa. And it's like, well, that's not coming from any type of lived experience. And that is what discerns humans from robots. And we are humans. We are accepting our humanity. We are not becoming robots. So we're slowing down, and this is the revolution. Like, this is the revolution, is asking these meaningful questions. It's choosing to slow down in a society that is speeding the fuck up at a pace that our mind can't even keep up with, our body can't even keep up with. And so our intention for this season is that this be part of this revolution, is inviting you to slow down, inviting you to ask questions, inviting you to take the time between episodes. These episodes are coming out bi-weekly. We are going to be releasing a blog post, like a research-based blog post that is going to be coming out a week before these episodes. So you can already start connecting to the topics that we're going to be bringing up and feeling into what resonates, what doesn't resonate. What are some questions that you may already have? What are some things that are activating for you, that are bringing up fear or bracing, right? This nervous system activation that we were talking about when we feel that our sense of self or a sense of belonging to society is being threatened. Because when you are thinking for yourself, you're not going to fit in this world in the ways that you once did, because you're going to be thinking for yourself. And that is incredibly courageous and brave. And we're here to walk this with you. We're here to meet you in this discernment, in a time of orienting to a reality that doesn't serve this process of being human. And we're bringing it back because this is what our world needs, is discerning, connected, embodied, relational human beings.
Welcome to season 2. If this conversation stirred something in you, stay with it a little longer. Notice what resonated. Notice what challenged you. Notice what your body knows, and notice what it may still be learning.
Discernment is rarely about arriving at certainty. More often, it is the practice of remaining curious, grounded, and willing to stay in relationship with the questions that matter. If you'd like to continue exploring with us, join our newsletter for reflections, resources, and deeper conversations inspired by each episode. You'll find everything linked in the show notes.
Until next time, may you continue learning when to trust yourself, when to question yourself, and how to discern the difference.